Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keaty. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives. Welcome back to the podcast. You have Seychelle here, and I am very excited about today because we have a special guest on the show with us today. And I'm excited about this guest because it's someone that I think we bring up probably every 5 or 6 episodes, talking about something that we've learned or that we've grown from or we've developed or modeled after. And so as hosts, this was a unanimous guest request for us. It was unanimous because the amazing Anna Krueger is joining us today. And Anna is a thought leader in the sales industry and really in the business industry in a lot of ways. She has consistently had to reinvent herself due to some circumstances we're going to talk about today. But not only did she figure out how to make those work to her favor, she also figured out how to make those skills and talents that she developed worked for others, and has been such an abundant-minded person to take her incredible knowledge that she has amassed over the last several years and turned it into education and sharing for other people. And it's something I just absolutely love. So Anna, I could gush for another 10 minutes, but I won't because they want to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Seychelle.
Excited. Welcome.
I'm excited too. I just have such huge respect for all the ladies. I know not everybody's here today that leads this podcast, but I consider you all friends and women that I look up to, even in friendship, and I feel very honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
We are thrilled you're here. So I think your background is best given from your perspective. And I would you share with us a little bit about kind of your early career and some of the creative things you had to jump into as you were coming out of the recruiting world? And I think you should share some of that too, and into the real estate space to kind of give our listeners just a little bit of perspective of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I would. And actually, this is fun because people don't usually ask me all this. So it's kind of fun to share. But yeah, I was a high school teacher. That's what I went to college for, was education. And I was a high school teacher in Baltimore. So I always tease when I teach a class, don't mess around, because I did teach high school in Baltimore. So that was where I got my chops for teaching. And I never thought I would do business, never once in a million years. And I left education really because of the politics in the school I was at. That's why I left.
Did you always want to be a teacher? Was that something you always wanted to do? Or like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I think it was the typical, I come from a family of teachers, fire, police, people in full-time ministry. So I just always thought teacher, ministry. Honestly, I thought I'd be married to be a stay-at-home mom. I never thought I would be doing this now and running a business. Seriously, the wildest thing. So I left teaching and I went to a temp agency and I literally said, I need a job and any job will do because I guarantee it will make more than I made as a teacher, which is the sad truth. And they put me as a college recruiter. And I foolishly pictured, the booth where you're like, hey, come to our school. And I pictured it being fun and exciting. And the reality was it was absolutely full-time inside sales. The thing I said I would never do was sales.
So were you on the phones all the time? Were you in person all the time? Like, what did that look like? When you say inside sales, a lot of people know what that is, but there's some on here that don't. Like, what did that actually look like for you in the college recruiting world?
Yeah, and I call it inside sales, but really it was more recruiting where it was on the phone and then I would meet students in person or over the phone, depending on their location. So I love to meet them in person if they could. So I know we have a lot of real estate agents that listen to this podcast. It was very similar to qualifying them over the phone and then sitting down across the table to have them sign up. And the school that I went to, and I think this is important, or the school I recruited for, I should say, they would not allow a student to count for you as a, quote, sale, which is weird to say it like that. But unless they actually passed and finished with a passing grade their first class. And we catered to people that worked full time. So to pass and finish your first class was a really big deal because you're also working full time. And I only share that to say I had to really learn how to dig into motivation.
Yeah.
To keep people engaged, because signing up and even paying wasn't enough. You had to complete with a C or higher your first class while working full time, and many of them had families.
Did you follow up with them like after they had registered and passed? Are you like, how is your class going? Are you doing your homework? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, it usually looked like 3-ish months of warming them up until they actually signed up for class. And then for most of them, another 6 to 8 weeks of following them until they completed their first class. And it was a check-in. I had them write letters to themselves, and I said, I want you to write a letter. I'm going to hang on to it. And if you want to quit school, call me. And I don't care if it's midnight. I'll get your message when I come in, and you can just say, I need the letter I wrote to myself, and I'll drop it in the mail. And I had students do that.
What gave you the idea for that? That's an incredibly intuitive thing to do.
Now that I know myself better, I would say probably my strengths, which I guess we'll probably talk through today, the tool Strengths Finder. But I have high individualization and high empathy. And so I'm really big into not everybody needs the same thing. And I just knew that the students themselves would be their own best encouragers. So if they could write a letter to themselves, and I just said, imagine that you are 5 weeks from now and you want to quit and just give up. What would you say to yourself? And at the bottom, it's kind of funny looking back, I had them write down who they were going to invite to graduation. And you better believe if they started to skip class or not have good grades, I would bring up those names. And it was because I cared about their goal. Part of what I loved about college recruiting was a lot of these were people who said, I have kids and I don't have enough money and I've got to have a better career and this is the life I want for my kids. So I was very invested in their goals. So I had no problem. Okay, are we not inviting Susie to graduation, George? Because these are the names you gave me, and we would talk about it.
I mean, like, pro tip for all of us that run teams, that is a great tactic to be able to use for motivation for your salespeople too. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So how long did you do this?
I did that. And let me say, as encouragement real quick, I was terrible at it at first. I almost got kicked off of my team because I said I would never do sales. So I was not good at this at first. And I learned language patterns and it turned the tide for me. And I ended up, once I knew what I was doing, which was about 6 months in, once I learned language patterns, I did it for a year. And then as people are listening, this hopefully will teach you to go after what you want. My office was right next to coffee, where the coffee was. And I happened to work in our regional office for a national, we were all over the US, but I was in a regional office. And that meant our regional director came very close to my office every day to get coffee. I wasn't a big coffee person, but I started getting coffee because I wanted to like casually bump into this director.
Yeah.
And I just said from my heart as a teacher, I said, look, we are hiring all these people. You do not have a training department. You have managers that are trying to manage and train. And they had a goal to hire 500 people over the next 6 months.
Wow.
And I said, I think you should let me start a training department. And I just, I hounded that guy. I think we need a training department and you should let me run it. Now I'm like 25 years old. I've never done this in the corporate world.
I love this.
But I knew that I could teach. I knew that's where my passion was. And I'm a ripple effect person. So I thought if I can help students, I can actually help more students if I train more advisors to go help more students. So he did. He gave me the end of the building. We knocked down a wall. I picked out the paint colors. And I started training in 2008. And that was when I had my first training class. So I got into that in 2006, and by 2008, I was training, and they would send new hires to my training lab, and I would train them and then send them out to their teams. And that's where it all started. And I remember thinking, when I left teaching, I never thought I would get to do that again. When I left teaching, there was a lot of grief because I loved teaching. And I thought, how cool that I'm actually doing the same thing I love to do. I'm just now doing it in a different environment. And I had never expected that, especially in the corporate world. And that's when I fell in love with coaching and training.
I love that so much. Well, and I'm picking up so many different clues, right, of who you were young, right, and your strengths deeply already embedded in you, but also some great lessons for our like entrepreneurs out there, right? Like, don't be afraid to try new things, even if you think you're going to hate it and you need it, right? Try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You learn a new skill, right? And then you failed forward for 6 months to try to understand. Like, I love your phrase of like, once I discovered language patterns and learned to watch for those, right? What a difference that made. And then you realize, oh, I can get good at this. And now I'm going to like use my strengths and use my passions and open that door. And then I'm not going to give up until eventually they say yes. So, I mean, a lot of really amazing lessons as a 25-year-old.
I think I learned a lot of that from my mom, who, as friends, you and I have talked about her before. She passed in 2019. But my mom was a single mom, and she worked so incredibly difficult. And I learned grit and work ethic. And she really built in me the belief that I could do anything I wanted to do. A common phrase I heard from my mom was, well, if anybody can do it, you can.
Ooh, I love that.
She just really helped me believe that I could do anything. And so I remember, like, I would call her and talk through these things. And she'd be like, well, if anybody can do it, you can. And I think that's where a lot of that came from. So shout out to my mom for building a lot of that in me.
Tell us a little bit about her too, because you all had a very special relationship, and this ties into part of your journey coming up. But I think we need to amplify her a little bit because she was a pretty incredible woman for you.
Yeah, I'm going to try really hard not to tear up. I felt it coming a minute ago.
It is okay.
No, it's
It is
okay.
But we have to celebrate her. I mean, she's a lot of the reason why you are the way you are today.
Yeah, she was amazing. Her name was Sharon. I want people to know who she was. Her name was Sharon, and she was so much fun. In fact, I had her do strengths shortly before she passed away, and it made so much sense to me. She had high positivity, high woo, high communication. People wanted to be around her, and quite frankly, she was a high school teacher before I was. And I remember, just to give you a picture of who she was, there was one New Year's Eve, I'm in like 7th grade, and we get a knock on the door around 11:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And we open the door, and it's the senior class, which I'm in 7th grade. So I'm like, oh my gosh, all the boys are here from senior class.
Yeah.
And they were there because they loved my mom so much as a teacher that they were like, can we hang out with you for New Year's Eve? And that's just the kind of person she was. I mean, she was an incredible teacher. She was an incredible friend. And it was just the two of us. My dad left when I was 4. And so from the time I was 4 all the way for the rest of life, it was me and my mom. So she was my mom, but she was also my best friend and my biggest cheerleader. And man, I feel her absence. There's a lot of times, and I hope it's okay to cry on the podcast.
It is very okay to cry.
Yeah. But there are times that I still wish I could just call her and hear, I believe in you.
Yeah.
And I know you could do this. And quite frankly, that's part of why I love of you ladies that lead this podcast is you do that as well. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, your mom instilled this amazing grit and confidence in you. And it's something that I think all of us love and admire. And I know I mentioned it a couple months ago on one of our episodes, but it's so fun when I do dinner with you because it's literally like being with like Steven Tyler of the real estate world. It's so much fun. like you cannot get a bite hilarious. Of your dinner. It's like I'm in awe. It's so much fun because people keep coming up telling you how much you've impacted them, and it's just so special. And I know your mom is really proud of you. And we all on the podcast are too, because you're really freaking amazing. So
well, thank you.
It's a joy to have you with us today and your friendship.
Likewise.
So you are in this sales role. You then do the training department. How long did that go on before you then took another opportunity?
Yeah, so I trained and that's actually part of the story that folds into mom and that you alluded to a minute ago. So I trained, for probably about a year, something like that. I don't have exact. And my family, while I was teaching and living in the Baltimore area, everybody moved to the Carolinas. So I now have this career that I love in the Baltimore, DC metro area, and my family all moved away. And I was very clear of what really mattered to me. And yes, a career mattered to me, but even more than that, my family mattered to me. So I started looking for a career opportunity in the South and learned that my company, the school that I worked with, actually had a location in Greenville, South Carolina, about 2 hours from my family in Charlotte. So I moved down here, and it's a long story, but the short version of it is they started letting me go back to recruiting. They said, we can't have you train from a distance, but think of how this helped set up. It's all part of the story. Back in 2008, people weren't really working from home, or 2009-ish.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you would have to voice over IP in, and one of our team members moved to Oklahoma City, and she would breathe on conference call with us. We would just call it breathing while we were working, because she was really good. Kristen, you've met her.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she tried to give me her notice, and I was like, I do not accept this. You can take that away, and we're going to figure it out from Oklahoma. But we would voice over IP in on the computer. And then we would breathe together on conference call with her and Erica and myself.
That's hilarious.
Because you didn't have Zoom and all these other tools. So yeah, training at a distance was hard.
Yes. That's hilarious. I love them, by the way. I see why you didn't want to let her go.
Yeah, I was like, absolutely not. You are not quitting. Thank you, though, for the offer, but no.
Yes. Well, and honestly, that's kind of what happened when I said I was moving down here, and there's more detail to it. But the short of it was I pursued calling that regional director, and I said, look, I want to move down here. Here's the situation. I've worked from home before. I worked from home when I was in high school. And I said, would you let me work from home? I can do everything I do over the phone. Can you just let me do it remotely? And he said, I'm not going to let you train, but I would let you go back to recruiting. So I went back to the phones, and it was the biggest blessing of my life, because that was on a Monday that he agreed he'd let me work from home. And basically what it did is it put me back in a job that I knew like the back of my hand. I'd been training it now for a year. It was simple. It didn't require a lot of mental energy from me. And I went back to phone sales, and that was on Monday. And on Friday of that same week, I found out my mom had stage 4 cancer. I was 26 years old.
I did not know that.
Yep. And
wow.
It was shocking. It was heartbreaking. And the good thing about the work situation, though, was in now 2008, when nobody worked from home, I now had a job that was flexible, and I could be a caretaker. And that was the biggest blessing of it. So it's like the whole thread. Had I not moved, just had all that not happened, I would not have been set up for the right position to become a caretaker for my mom. Because like I said, it was just the two of us.
Yeah, I mean, you would have had, if you were in a position of full in office, you would have had to have quit and then figured, how are you going to do your income while taking care of her? I mean, or you would have had to choose, which would have been a really heartbreaking decision.
Yeah. Or start a new role of, close to where she lived, and that would have taken a lot of mental energy while also caretaking. So I honestly see it as God's kindness, where, at first when I found out you're going back on the phone, we'll let you work remotely, but it has to be back in sales, I wasn't the most thrilled, but I was like, hey, it's easy. I'll do it for now until I figure something else out. But that actually was exactly what I needed to be a caretaker. And I'm so thankful to God for providing that opportunity.
Absolutely. And so then you become, in your mid-20s, at 26, you become a caretaker for your mom.
Yeah.
And you're working full-time and working from home in a new city.
Yeah, I had moved to Greenville, which is where I'd wanted to be. It's where the job was when I first moved down here. And I was only here for about 5 months. And I had just broken into the friend group. I had just met ooh, look at those guys in the friend group. Maybe I'll marry one of them, And
yeah.
life was very exciting and hopeful. And I had my own place, and I'm in a new town. Everything was exciting. And it was December 5th of 2008. I got that call around midnight. I was actually hosting a Christmas party at my house with all of these new friends. My house was full of people. And around midnight, I got a call that said, I'm in the ER, and the doctor just said, I'm full of cancer cells, and I have to call a doctor on Monday. And I think we were both just in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I worked from home, I don't know if I would do this looking back now, knowing everything I know now, but I made the decision at that time, and I'm 26,
Absolutely.
I decided I'm going to move in with my mom because she has stage 4. She's about to have surgery, chemo.
Hospice, whatever it's going to be. Yeah. Palliative care, whatever it looks like.
Yeah. And like I said, she was my best friend. So I wanted to be close to her. I mean, I didn't want to move in with my mom at 26 and become a caretaker, but I also wanted to take care of her. And so I moved it. So I am in a new town now. I don't know anyone. I'm going through the biggest trial of my life. It honestly, it was, the word that comes to mind is wretched. It was truly wretched. And I ended up in a very dark place emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Work was fine.
You're like, that's great.
That was
but
fine.
everything else is a flaming
Everything
disaster.
else,
Zone.
yeah. Everything else honestly felt horrible. And the way I would describe it is I feel like when I was in Greenville on December 4th, the day before I found out mom had cancer, it was almost like my friends that I had met, we were all kind of on this racetrack together. And we were all working on our careers, and we were all working on, dating and friendships and getting houses and renting or buying, and just doing the things you do when you're 20 something years old. And I felt like after mom's diagnosis and moving to North Carolina, it felt like I fell down on that racetrack where previously we'd all been running together at about the same pace. And I truly felt like nobody noticed because the friends I made were all new friends. I wasn't in an environment where I had longstanding friendships. And it just felt like I fell down on the racetrack of life. Everything is messed up now. Life is off track. And the people I was running with, they're continuing to run. They're now dating. They're now getting married, having babies, and I have fallen down, and I've been down for a long time, and I don't know when I'm going to get up and life's going to get normal again. That's what it felt like.
Well, and it is, you and I talked about this on the phone the other day, but I think it's such an important reminder that when crisis happens or wretched things, to your description, wretched things happen, we don't often have the bandwidth when we're in the middle of that chaos to then raise our hands up in the air and scream, help, I need help. Or, oh, I want to keep up with my friends. Or, oh, I want to get back on the racetrack. You're doing everything you can just to keep your nose and maybe your mouth above water, but maybe just your nose above the water. And we talk about this a lot with our Hair Best Life group, but drowning is silent. It's often not loud and screaming like Jaws. And I think it's so important. Your vulnerability is such a good, important reminder of why we as entrepreneurs need to check on our friends and even our new friends, right? When sometimes they go silent, just kind of paying attention to that a little bit. And not that was 100% their responsibility, but I think it sure would have helped.
And I will say, I do have some friends that rose to the top. I think in my 26-year-old self, I don't know that I did a good job of expressing what I needed either.
No. Well, I mean, do you even know what you need, really? In the middle of chaos? Did you even know what you needed?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. I probably didn't know what I need. I knew I needed sleep.
Yeah.
I needed money.
Yeah.
I needed to get mom to chemo appointments. That's pretty much what I knew.
How did your friends, I think this is a great tip. If you have a friend, then you're listening and someone is in a wretched situation right now, how did your friend show up to you in a way that felt meaningful for you?
Oh, man. One of my favorite things, and what an awesome friendship, because these were new friends. One of my friends, he recognized, because his dad had died from cancer. I think that's why he knew. He came over to my house one day and he said, you're about to go see your mom, right? And I was like, yeah. And he said, here's a plant for her. And he handed me this big gangly plant. He goes, this is for her. And he said, you don't need to be the only one encouraging your mom right now. And he didn't even know her. He'd never met her. And he said, but this is for your mom. And then he handed me a gift card for a coffee shop. And he said, this is for you. And you need to get out of the house. Do not stay entirely in the house all the time. And the plant, this might sound funny, but that plant, it's almost like my shoulders dropped because it's I don't have to be the only one figuring out how to encourage my mom. Because she also was new to the town, by the way. She'd only lived there maybe a year longer than I had. So she was still relatively
She doesn't
new.
have community either.
No, and that's why community is so important. That's why I think what you guys do with Empire Circle and all of that is so important because that's your community. That's where you find your people. And my mom did not have that. And I did not have that at that time in a big way. But yeah, him doing that for me was huge. Sometimes friends would just say, we're just going to drive up and see you and take you out to dinner. And that was awesome. And I've also learned, because I sometimes still feel like I don't know what to do when a friend's going through a hard thing.
Yes.
Even though I've been through it, I still don't always know.
Yes.
And I've learned it's most helpful not to say, hey, if you need something, let me know, because then that puts the burden on them to think of, what do I need? Much better is to say, here are 3 things that I thought of I could do for you. Pick 1 or 2, and I'll do that for you. And that just takes the burden of having to figure it out off yourself.
You actually gave me that advice to full disclosure, y'all, I called Anna like a week before my dad passed away. And I was like, what do you wish you had done differently? What did you really do well in this final phase? And she was full of wisdom and grace and amazing advice. One of the things she said to me, though, is everyone's going to ask you, well, just let me know if you need something. And so if you know of anybody that's close to your dad or your family that have superpowers, go ahead and write those down. So when they eventually say that, instead of, this is now my dialogue of me wanting to like punch my arms up in the air and go, I don't know. I had a whole list of things that people could help with. And you gave me the wisdom and perspective during that final week of his life to take a minute. And my sister-in-law actually took our daughter, and I had 3 hours to myself. And I wrote down a whole list of things that people could help us with, that if they asked and said, let me know if I could help you with something, I actually had a whole list then that I could ask for. But I never would have thought to do that had you not mentioned that. And it was so helpful because people knew how to show up for you then. And I also then knew how to ask for help. So it was a huge gift for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm honored that I was able to do that. And that's the thing. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna here. I think you have to recognize grief. And I'm still growing in this, but I think in the past that was hard. But here's the good that came out of it. And it was my way of escaping is, let's just focus on the positive, because I'm very high in positivity. So I'm not doing that right now. I mean this very genuinely. I will say that I'm so thankful for the people I have been able to help because of those experiences. And, my mom, before she passed, faith is a big thing for us. And she said, if more people know about God and Jesus because of what I've been through, it was worth it. And if we can help people, it was worth it. And I echo that even with tears in my eyes. But people go through a lot of hard stuff. And I'm thankful for this space to talk about this today. Usually people are asking me about like lead gen, lead conversion. This is the stuff that I'm like really passionate about that I don't get to talk about much. But knowing how to help people when they're hurting has just become really meaningful to me. And I'm glad there's a lesson there. That was a gift to me that you called me in your time of need. Yeah. And don't be afraid to reach out to people when you need something.
Yeah.
That's the lesson there.
And you're so right. I love that perspective because you're so right. It's like if you have to go through the hard or the wretched, I love that word. It's so descriptive of the scenario. I really love it. If you have to go through it, if at least on the other side, there's a gift you can give to pay it forward.
Yeah.
I don't know that it makes it all worth it because it was not fun. And I would still give it 2 thumbs down, would not recommend. But I will say that it does make it feel like it had meaning and like there was something bigger, not just in a faith way, but also in a humanity way of getting to pay it forward. So I love that perspective. And you guys thought, so she was stage 4, and I didn't realize this till we talked the other day. How long did her cancer last? Because I think this is wild.
If I knew this at the beginning, I don't know if I would have been able to breathe, that it would be this long of a trial, but she lived 11 years, which is amazing.
Yes.
It's twofold, right?
Yes, of course.
It's amazing. I'm so thankful. And I know not everyone can see my face, but I'm smiling as I say this. It was 11 years that I had her that I wasn't expecting. The flip side of that was it was 11 years of intense suffering all throughout that. I mean, there would be periods of time where we just knew she's going to have chemo on Wednesday, and by Friday, the side effects will be bad enough. We'll be in the ER around midnight. And it was just routine. Like chemo is Wednesday, ER is Friday night, and we do this every 2 weeks. It's just what we do. And there were years like that. And it was tough. And I'm also really glad I had my mom for 11 years. So it's joy and sorrow together that she lived 11 years.
Isn't it amazing that those can coexist?
Yeah, it is. I'm learning a lot about that right now.
Mm-hmm. That was a fun journey. for me on that one. I was like, oh. But it's a really good journey. And so I want to put a bow on the journey part of this, because I think we have a lot of amazing skill set I do want to get into as well. Okay, everybody. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a pause with this interview and pick up on part 2 in just a couple of days. And the reason why we wanted to do this is we didn't want to have to edit out a lot of Anna's interview because it is so incredibly powerful. And so this first part, we're really focused in on her personal journey. And I am so thankful to her for being so vulnerable and real with us, because y'all know, if you've listened to us for any period of time, vulnerability and authenticity are 2 of our core values here on the podcast. So please do me a favor and stay tuned and pick us up for part 2 of this episode, where we talk about how this journey led into Anna crafting a career that supports her living her best life, which is what we're all about. All right, go out there and build your big business, and more importantly, your even bigger life.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.